Being a billionaire, man, that used to be the American dream, right? I mean, to make so much money that you didn't have to worry about money. You could buy houses for all your relatives, maybe start a little foundation. Billionaires were sort of the pinnacle of American success. But now, not so much. And I think some of that has to do with politics and some of that has to do with the cultural shift. Yes, we have a billionaire in the White House, Donald Trump. I'm not saying this is totally unrelated, although when he ran, he said, look, I don't have to ask anybody for money. He obviously did raise some money in the fall campaign, and he touted it as a sign of his business acumen that he had amassed a fortune in a worldwide real estate empire. Now you have other billionaires who say, hey, Trump can do it. I want to run. And one of them is Howard Schultz, the Starbucks founder. And he's getting an enormous amount of media attention for a guy who says he might run as an independent. My philosophy is decide to run, then we'll cover you. But CNN gave him a primetime town hall the other night, and man, he needed a little more caffeine to get some good answers here. First of all, the question of wealth came up because, and this is part of the reason for the shift, many of the new Democrats, more progressive, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez obviously is one of them, and they want to tax the rich. And so she's got a proposal, for example, for a 70% tax rate on income over $10 million. So CNN's Poppy Harlow asks Schultz about that, and he says, oh, that's punitive, that's way too high. So what's your number? But he says the rich should pay more. Okay, how much more? 2%, 5%, 10, 20? And he has no answer. He's just vague, comprehensive tax reform. If you're going to go out there and posit yourself as a plausible presidential candidate, you got to be able to answer those questions. And this was even worse. No political advisor should have left Howard Schultz, should have let him go out on that stage without having this answer to this very obvious question. If you become president, what are you going to do with your $2 billion stake in Starbucks? Are you going to sell it? And he said, oh, this is way premature. Either you say, yes, I will sell it if I'm fortunate enough to be your president, or, there's no way I'm going to sell it, and here's why, and it's an American success story, blah, blah. You can't just wiggle around. He had no answer. And that is hard to imagine. So this other billionaire who has flirted with running before, and I'm not so sure he's going to run now, is Mike Bloomberg, the former New York mayor, formerly of Goldman Sachs. He's got a lot of money, and Politico has a story saying that Bloomberg is going to spend $500 million during the campaign season. And that's a lot of money, right? And wouldn't that be something, two New York billionaires running against each other? But there's a plan A and a plan B, according to this piece. Bloomberg, if he decides to run, he'll run as a Democrat. He'll spend the $500 million trying to win the Democratic nomination. If he decides not to run, feels too crowded, he's too rich, he's too old, whatever, then he will still, according to this piece, if this is true, spend the money on a kind of a shadow campaign in mining a lot of data to help the eventual nominee knock off President Trump. So I think one way or another, Bloomberg, unlike Howard Schultz, may well be a factor in the campaign just because he wants to spend all this money, or so he says. But this whole notion now, it used to be Jack Kennedy, Nelson Rockefeller, really wealthy people were considered successful in politics, not so much anymore. But now you have somebody like Bill Gates, who's, an uber billionaire through the fantastic success of Microsoft. And he gave an interview to the Mail, and he also is sort of embracing it. He says, I don't deserve my fortune. Nobody does. It has come through timing, luck, through people I work with. I certainly worked hard, and I think software has been a beneficial thing, but I benefited from a structure too. He says he's paid more than $10 billion in taxes in his life, but he should pay more. Okay, that's great. And the thing about Gates is he actually puts his money where his mouth is. He has spent an enormous amount on the foundation that he runs with his wife, Melinda. He says he's going to leave almost all his money, a little bit to his kids, the rest to the foundation. So that, I think, he's one of the few billionaires out there who actually has a positive public image because he doesn't seem greedy. He's not dirtying his hands in politics. And he's saying, yeah, I should pay more. As for these other guys, it just goes to show you, no matter how rich you are, no matter how smart you are, mastering the political skills, not always so easy.